Hello, everyone. You're welcome to another session at the Courtship Academy. I'm so happy today because we're going to talk about a topic that is so important in marriage. And that topic is how to know yourself. Because that is the starting point. If you do not know yourself, how do you even know the spouse that you're going to choose? How do you even know that the person is suitable for you and that you can relate with that person and work out things together for you to have a blissful marriage or the marriage that you really want and deserve? So that is why this topic is very, very important. And I'm so excited because we just have the right person to talk about this topic. So my guest today, excuse me, is Mrs. Modupe Ehirim. I think I've tried pronouncing the name. She's popularly known as Mommy Mo. She's a marriage educator and counselor, and she's the founder of the Right Fit Marriage Academy. So she recently celebrated her 36th year in marriage. So you can see how long she has been in it. So she understands herself, what she wanted, and is in this marriage that is still subsisting and waxing stronger each day. So, Mommy Mo, I don't know if you want to add anything to the introduction for us to get to know you better. Maybe I omitted something you would like to add for them to know more about you.
Okay, then. It was actually 37 years a month ago. So myself and my husband have been married for 37 years, and we've known one another for 42 years. What's interesting also, and I think those who will listen to us will want to know, is that one, myself and my husband are from two different ethnic groups, just like you. Nice. And then, yes, myself and my husband have also been in what I call a dual career marriage. So all the years that we've been married, both of us have been working. Both of us have always worked and done something. So I have 4 children of my own, all of them grown up and living away from the home now. And then I have one of them who is married. I also always like to tell people that my own parents were married for 60 years and 4 months before my mother died. So my own marriage is not the first healthy and successful marriage that I saw. I actually also lived with my parents, and a lot of what I am doing or I have done in my own marriage, I got it from them. They modeled something for me. So it was easier for me to build on that. I also was privileged to see my parents-in-law. By the time my father-in-law died, they too had been married for about 53 years. And of those 53 years, I was with him as well for almost 20 years. So again, I saw another couple, and I have quite a lot of friends, who have been married for 40-something years, 30-something years. So for me, what most people think is a rarity is actually common knowledge for me. I know a lot of people who have healthy marriages, and the marriages have lasted long. You'll notice I use the term healthy marriage, marriage in which the partners know how to relate with one another properly. Yeah.
That's good to know. Sorry, I subtracted the 1 year from your marriage. Okay, so that's good to know. So today she's going to be talking to us about how to know yourself, because it's a very important thing. That's the foundation you use that you can now build on to getting someone that will fit, who you are and you can relate to or relate with. So, Mommy Mo, you can go ahead and give us what it takes. Like, how do you know yourself? How do we know ourselves?
Okay, how to know yourself, and Christine, I'm so happy that this is a topic in the Courtship Academy. Before I tell you how you know yourself, because I think what is more important is, what does it mean to know yourself? And then why do you need to know yourself? Once you know those two things, the how is even more, it is not so difficult. So what does it mean to know yourself? What it means to know yourself is to be able to know your history, your origin, the experiences that you have had in life, the exposure that you have had in life, how they have defined you, how they have shaped how you look at life. Many people always think when we're talking of knowing yourself, we're talking of purpose. No, your history. That's the first thing, where you have lived, how people do there, and all those kind of things is pretty important, because who you are is just a reflection of where you're coming from. It's like if you take somebody who was born and bred in the US now, and you take somebody who was born and bred in Nigeria, there are certain things that you'll just see in them and you would know. So you need to know that. That's the first thing. Then you need to know what I call your personal definition of marriage. What do I mean by that? So wherever you grew up, there is an understanding of marriage in that place. It may be something like it's between a man and woman, infidelity is frowned on or accepted. It may be families are the ones that are marrying one another. You will see what the role of men is, how money is managed, how parenting is done. All of those things are very crucial, because you don't know your own personal definition of marriage, which is what I call it. You won't even, you will just be going blind when you want to choose somebody, and you won't be curious about what that person's personal definition of marriage is. The third thing that you want to know about yourself is your personality traits. And I'm not talking of things like sanguine and, which all of us are very familiar with. In FSC, we have 4 things that we say you should look for. When you look at yourself, how much of your leadership capacity has been developed? Are you able to lead yourself? Do you even know the areas in which you should lead yourself? How much has your capacity to relax and have fun and take life easy been developed? How much has your capacity to interact with other people developed? How much is your capacity to organize yourself? How much is it developed? These things are very important, because when you don't know yourself and you meet somebody else, you also won't be able to know them. And so you might just choose the person who is wrong for you. Of course, everybody is familiar with something like love language, but then a critical thing that you also want to know is what triggers you? What triggers you? What do we mean by what triggers you? So for example, if you grew up in a home, maybe where your parents didn't have a good relationship, you may have seen things in your parents' life that you have made internal resolutions. And when somebody behaves that way, I remember I had a client that told me, she was just very antagonistic towards her mother-in-law. But when we looked at it, we found out that when she was a child, she had been bullied. And she had made up her mind that nobody must bully her. So when she got to know her mother-in-law is a very aggressive person. So everything that the mother-in-law did triggered her and made her to feel that her mother-in-law was bullying her, whereas her mother-in-law was just being her person. So you need to know, what are the experiences I've had in life that have triggered me? Then you need to know, what is your reason for wanting to get married? You need to know that about yourself. Marriage is something that everybody desires, but people have different reasons for marrying it. If you're a man and you're looking for somebody who will keep your house and look after your children, and you go and choose a woman who feels that my marriage is supposed to give me companionship with my husband, then both of you will be in trouble, because it will be hard to have a shared meaning. Then, your passions and interests. So for example, when I wanted to get married, I was clear that I was somebody who was going to work. But I also met my husband, and my husband was somebody who had decided even before he met me that his wife was going to work. And so passions, what is it that is important to you in your life? And I'm not only talking of career, I'm just meaning, are you somebody who has decided that I'm going to serve God? Are you somebody who has decided that I'm going to be a charitable person and take people into my house? What are the things that drive you, that you are passionate about. Because if you don't know these things about yourself, it's very easy to overlook it. Let me quickly share an illustration. I met a young lady and a young man. As soon as they came to me and I had a conversation with me, they broke up their relationship because the young lady was born in a church, a congregation that she came out of and became a Pentecostal. And there was a reason why she came out of that congregation and became a Pentecostal. And she now met this guy who belonged to that congregation and who wanted to remain in the congregation. I mean, that relationship is dead on arrival because she had something that she was passionate about, but she didn't know herself well enough to know that that thing is important to her. By the time this guy came to her, as soon as he said that he was of this denomination, she should have known that this person cannot go with my passion. So their struggle that brought them to me was that he was saying, Shebi, you were a member of this congregation before, why can you not come back? And they were going back and forth. But the thing is that was a relationship that would not go. Then how do you, what I call your relationship to compromise? If you're going to live with another person, you have to really think deeply because you are going to be making decisions together. You are going to be solving problems together. You are going to influence them. They are going to influence you. Both of you are going to have changing situations. So you look at yourself and you ask, who are you now? Are you, what is your, how do you make your own decisions? Are you the kind of person that can make decisions well? But if you are with another person, you want your own way, you don't listen to them. You need to know all those things about yourself. But more importantly, if you know them, you will also now know how to recognize things in other people and know where they fit for you. The last thing that I also think is important for you to know is, how do you communicate? Are you a passive person? A passive person is somebody who may have grown up in a home where you are not allowed to talk. So anything people say is even hard for people to get you to share your own opinion. Are you a passive aggressive person? Do you communicate passive aggressive? Which means that you will do as if you had, but in your mind, you know that you are not agreeing. Are you somebody who is aggressive, or are you somebody who is assertive? The person who is assertive is what we all aspire to be, but you need to know who you are. So when you know all of this, these are the things you need to know. Why do you need to know them? Some 50, 100 years ago, if you wanted to marry, it is highly likely that you will marry somebody who came from your village. So it means that both of you will have gone to the stream together, you have gone to the farm together, the festival in your village is known to you, the age grade is known to you. So norms for behavior are similar. And so when people met in that kind of, in fact, the way we try to marry now, the reason we are marrying that way is because that's the way those people used to marry. So one day, your father can just come and say, the father of such a person wants his son to marry you. All of you will agree. Why? There is nothing to investigate. Because you've grown up in similar, what shaped your perspectives on life, what shaped you, the way people communicate is familiar territory to you. But in today's world, that's not so. Even if you want to marry the person from your village, it's highly likely that both of you have lived in different places, that you went to school in different places, that you go to different churches or worship, so many things, and then add the internet and 24-hour TV. So the things that are shaping us and making us who we are, they're very different. So we ourselves are strangers to ourselves, not just to the person that we want to marry. So if you don't sit down to investigate what has made me who I am, what do I believe? Why do I believe it? Are there people who don't believe such a thing? You need to really investigate. If you investigate yourself and you become self-aware, what it means, the two things that will happen to you. The first is that as you are looking at other people, you immediately recognize things in them. So if a young man is coming to you, let's say you are a lady now, and you are somebody who already knows yourself well, there are certain things you will see in them and you will know that this person does not fit me. Case in point, if you're somebody who has already recognized that your passion is that you are going to work and make a home at the same time, if you meet somebody who is thinking a woman cannot make a home and work at the same time, you don't need, your chemistry won't kick in, because you will know that this is a very important thing to me and it can't match this person. If you know that you're a passive person in communication and you meet somebody who is very aggressive, you will immediately have a sense that if I'm with this person, things will not go well. Why? Because they will be very aggressive, I will be very passive, and things will go upside down in that way. So you make an effort to know yourself. One, it will help you know yourself. Two, it increases your capacity to assess other people when you see them. This is not even about marriage alone. It just helps you to know who should be your friend. But it is very critical in marriage, because marriage is the one that when you choose a partner, walking out of it, even if you want to, is very painful and it is very, very difficult. Now, how do you know yourself? What are the steps that you can take to know yourself? The very first thing that any young adult really ought to do, long before they are thinking of getting married, but if you haven't done so and you're already thinking of getting married, still do it, is draw a timeline of your life. Look at year 0 when you were born. Look at where you are now, and then begin to ask yourself, okay, what happened between 0 and 5? What happened between 5 and 10? What happened between, just try to remember what are significant memories that you have. What are things that you can remember? You will find it difficult to do. Why? Because many of us are not people who introspect. Our culture does not encourage looking inward. And I'm talking specifically to people who are Nigerians or who are Africans. If you're living in Europe, if you're living in Americas, in school, you probably have been asked, what do you want to be in the future? Okay, you are made to think critically and to introspect. But for us in Africa, that's tough. But don't step back from it. It's not a one-time exercise. So when you begin to look at all of those things will come to your mind. Record everything. So you'll probably say, I went to secondary school. I remember what happened in boarding house. One senior did something to me, but just write all of these things down. The more that you write this, the more that you are training your mind to look at your life and ask questions of you. And the more that you start thinking that way, the more that you'll be paying attention to something. The second thing that you will do to know yourself is to ask someone who you trust, maybe your sibling or a close friend. Ask them, when you look at me, what do you see? What attitude do I show? What traits do I show? What kind of behavior do you see me do? Christy, let me share something that is very interesting to you. I was 60 before I realized that it wasn't that I hated shopping. It's just that I had never learned how to shop.
Wow.
So all my life, when people say, I say, no, I don't like shopping. So my siblings will help me get things. My husband will help me get my clothes and everything. I use a pair of glasses. Even if I want to go and get a pair of glasses, somebody would need to go with me and tell me that the frame is good for me to pick it. When I marked my 60th birthday, I think I wanted to buy something. And then my daughter said, Mommy, no, I can't get it for you. Why don't you go shop for it? And I said, as I don't really know. She said I should go. I went to the store. I couldn't stay there. I wanted to use my card. The card didn't work. So I told them I'll come back the following day with cash. When I entered the store the following day with cash, when they showed me what I had picked the day before, I didn't recognize it. That's how absent I was from the transaction. And that shook me. So I started investigating what is the matter? And the more I thought of it, the more I came, eventually I arrived at the fact that when I was young, my parents didn't have a lot of money. And my mom used to do the shopping, and she did her best to make the money stretch. And as a child, I didn't want to upset her. So whatever she bought for me, I accepted with gratitude. And I think from there, I sort of just made a wrong connection between shopping and discomfort when you don't have a lot of money to spend. So here was me all these years, not shopping, not doing anything for myself, and then not knowing where it came from, just assuming that it is me, Modupe Ehirim, that does not like shopping. So once I realized that, my daughter said, Mommy, well, there is a process for shopping. You have to sit down and think about what you want. You have to look at how much resources you want. You have to look at what, and I actually started learning. And so I was held back for 60 years by something that is a learnable skill, just because I didn't know myself. I didn't know where the belief I had about myself came from. So that's the reason why young adults need to do this exercise. Imagine me not knowing that now. What other things did I not know about myself that I would just walk blindly into a relationship about? What if my husband was not an understanding person who did not mind all these years that I was not shopping? What if he came from a background where he expects that a woman ought to know the shopping and do all the shopping? What kind of fights would we have been having needlessly? So ask the first one is draw a timeline for your life. Try to remember as much of your history as you can. Then ask someone who you know, who you trust, maybe your sibling, maybe your friend, to tell you about yourself. When they observe you, what are the attitudes that they have? There is something also that, people can Google it online, Johari window. So Johari window, is a psychology, some tool. So, but it's something that everybody can easily do. So you will draw 4 quadrants, and one will be what you know about yourself and other people know about you, what you know about yourself and other people don't know about you, what other people know about you and you don't know about yourself, what you don't know about yourself and what other people don't know about you. Now, if you Google Johari window, you will see that tool there, and a number of adjectives are made available to you. So you then look at those adjectives and look at the ones that you feel describes you. Then you give it to a trusted person and say, look at this adjective and pick out the ones that you think describe me. The instructions are there, but that way you'll be able to recognize what you know about yourself and other people know. What is always interesting when people do that exercise is that other people will know things about you that you don't know. When they start telling you that, oh, this adjective describes you, you'll be saying, no, that's not me. And then, if you say, okay, why do you think it describes me? When they start telling you, you'll begin to see your blind spots.
Yes.
Things that you don't know about yourself. So that's the second thing. The third thing that you can do is check your beliefs, especially the ones that you feel very strongly about. Check them. What do I mean by checking your beliefs? So you ask, if you know that maybe you are thinking Yoruba people are bad people. that's one belief. And you've believed it all your life. Everybody around you believes that Yoruba people are bad people. Then you want to ask yourself, where did that belief come from? I don't know if you've had the story of, the lady who was cooking and her daughter asked her, why are you cooking in this way? And she said, my mother said that's how we've always done it. I said, so who told your mother that? And they started going back and going back and going back to the living relatives, and nobody could really say where that thing came from. Because the daughter was saying to the mom, can't we cook it differently? And the mother said, that's the way we've always cooked it. So they went back, and there really wasn't any logical explanation for cooking only in that way and not in another way. A lot of our beliefs are like that. They just were passed on to us. So we need to ask ourselves, where did that belief come from? The second question is, are there people who don't believe those things? And the third question is their life any worse for it? So the three questions, where did that belief come from? Are there people who don't believe those things? Is their life any worse for it? If your response to question 2 is yes, and your response to question 3 is that their life is not any worse for it, you've got to question yourself, is this belief really as sacrosanct as you think it is? Because if you were born a Yoruba person, you are likely to like amala. If you were born an Igbo person, you are likely to wonder, how can people be eating this black powder that is made from yam? There is nothing wrong with both beliefs. Both are just showing where you are coming from. So if your life is going to depend on it, you realize that that belief is not such an important thing for you to die for. That's what I mean by that. Then identify your negative, what triggers your negative emotions. If you're somebody who is fearful or who gets angry, you've got to question yourself and say, why does this thing make me so? When you are doing all of these exercises, and it's things that you do now and you will continue to do over time, even after you have married, or you doing all of these things helps you to know yourself and helps you to really be a good person. I mean, be the kind of person who can recognize these things. So what you'll find is that if you're somebody who is constantly doing this, I always say to singles, if you meet somebody today, whether the person is toasting you or is interested in you or not, I mean, if you can engage in that timeline of your life conversation, you would know a lot about the person. Even, you just ask simple questions like, I see that you are from Imo State. Whereabouts in Imo State are you from? Have you always lived in the village all your life? And all of those things. That's somebody you've just met. Is accepted etiquette to have that kind of conversation. And if the person is reluctant, you can slow down. But once you train yourself to be like that, you can find out a lot about somebody even before they become interested in you. The last way for knowing yourself is to seek out new experiences. Seek out new experiences. If you are always in your comfort zone, you move with the people from your own tribe, you move with the people from your own church, you move with the people, what it means is that is all that you will know. It would be hard for you to recognize beliefs that are limited only to your place of origin or the community that you belong to. It would be difficult for you to see yourself in, like in the mirror. And to round up, I'm just going to give an illustration. So I'm an Ogbonge Nigerian. I've lived practically in Nigeria all my life. During COVID-19, I started to watch Korean movies. And the first series I watched, I was saying to my husband, thank God I'm a Nigerian. Thank God I'm a Nigerian. And why was I saying this? the things I saw there shocked me. And I consider myself a very progressive person. So I was, first of all, shocked by how tight the family unit was. I was shocked to see 30-something-year-old people still living with their parents. I was shocked to see family units where everybody must come home at 6 p.m. to have dinner, even adult children. I don't think I have seen any family in recent times close to me where the grandparents, the parents, the children, everybody was living in the same place. But the hugest shock for me was that it is the young ladies who actually say to the young men, I want to date you. I was like, all of a sudden, it dawned on me that I had a belief that I had held on to very strongly, but which is just a belief that is limited to my locality. Because consistently you would see, and then finally, marriages were business arrangements. So when people wanted to marry one another, they were actually asking one another, how will this relationship benefit me financially and business-wise? And that was alien to anything that I had. In fact, I was sure that anybody in any modern world should not have that. And that was a shock to me. What if I never watched those movies? I probably would be thinking that everybody around the world, once I watched those movies, I stopped saying this is an African mindset, because I realized that some of the things that we think are African are also worldwide. And some of the things that we think is modern is actually not happening in a lot of the places that we believe that they're happening in. And so I like that in Courtship Academy, you are encouraging people to look at themselves and know themselves. Man, know yourself is probably the most precious gift that you can give to yourself. I think there's something that I omitted that I would like to quickly add, and that is how, as you're getting to know yourself, how has your upbringing taught you about boundaries, personal boundaries? How has your upbringing taught you about personal agency? Personal agency is when you realize that after God, I am the last bus stop for my life. So I'm the person who knows what is good for me, regardless of what other people think. Responsibility lies with me. Anything that other people decide for me, I am the one who is going to live with the consequences of it. And so when I look at the consequences of it, if I see that what they're asking me to do is going to give me consequences I don't want to live with, principle of personal agency says I have to take responsibility for that decision. Then principle of boundaries says that, people can do whatever they like, but their freedom stops where your nose begins. So it's okay for them to want to do anything. However, if what they want to do is going to cause you bodily harm, emotional harm, psychological harm, you are well within your rights to draw a boundary and say, beyond this, you would not go. A human being is like a house. If you don't have any boundary around yourself, anybody can go. One way in which boundaries are stepped upon is, for example, if a young man says to a young man, if a young woman says, I don't want to have sex before marriage, and a young man says, if you love me, you will sleep with me. Essentially, what that young man is saying to you is the boundary that you have put around yourself to keep yourself safe. I have no respect for it. Allow me to trespass. And sometimes the young man might even not ask your permission to trespass. He can just trespass, and and then you will be feeling am I the one who is feeling bad? No. If you are feeling bad, it means that you don't even know that you're supposed to have respectable boundaries around yourself. So you also need to know, did your upbringing teach you boundaries? Did your upbringing teach you personal agencies? And I think I will close with this. The purpose of knowing yourself is also for you to recognize the places that you are weak, the places that you need to grow in, because marriage requires maturity. As you begin to know yourselves, you would know areas that you are not yet mature in, and you will walk in it. You will also be able to recognize if an immature person is the person who is approaching you for marriage. Let me stop there.
Very, very interesting. I like all the points that you have made. They are really very vital, and there are things that most people will ignore them at our own peril. And I've heard people talk about horoscope. Is it good? Because some people is like, oh, to know yourself is just horoscope. You read your horoscope, you will know what are your thoughts about horoscope?
You know, horoscope, consulting a pastor, consulting a dibia or babalawo, as we call them. That is, you know, this, let me take the name of Lagbaja to this person. Essentially, what people are looking for is a shortcut. A horoscope can tell you a few things, but the question is this: will a horoscope tell you all these things that we have just talked about?
No.
No. So, you know, marriage, I wish people looked at marriage for what it was. One, it's a decision that you are going to make. And if God gives you life, that's another 50 to 60 years or even 70 years. How many breakfasts will you eat with that person? How many decisions will you people make? Then you people will now have children whose lives are dependent on you. Your decisions are going to affect other people. Horoscope is too minute. That is, even if horoscope says you people are a match, which is what I find with many people, you know, who tell me, God told me that this is the person I should marry. And then when they start living together, because they've not done this work of knowing themselves, even if you meet somebody who you think is a match for you, if you don't know yourself, when you people start living together, you would not be able to have a shared meaning, a shared purpose. You would not be able to really build a life together. So a horoscope for me, if anybody believes in it, it's okay for them to do it, but the work they need to do is still there after they come back from consulting the horoscope.
When they come back from consulting. That's an interesting way to put it.
No, I won't say to them that they shouldn't consult the horoscope, but when they come back, they still have to do this work that we have talked about.
Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this session, and I'm glad that you've really brought out salient points and shown us like the practical things that we need to address. I really loved how you talked about drawing a timeline of your life, you know, to know, because most of the times it's things that, you know, when we grew up, what affected us. I could identify with the story you gave about shopping. Mm-hmm. Because even in my own case, it was the same thing. My parents had to be, my mom was the one that bought things for us. So even now, I see myself like, I don't really know much about dressing, all this thing, what to buy, because somebody else was taking the decision for me. Like, okay, the dress to get, she will just be the one. Even when you go to tailor, you know that time that they will be sewing the Christmas dress or something. It's my mom that will decide this is the style that is going to be sewn for her. So I didn't used to think about those things. So now that as an adult, you begin to think like, okay, what style do I really want? You know, you're just left confused. Like, I don't really know, or you fall back on the tailor and say, whatever style you think is good for me. Oh, yeah, so.
And you know what is interesting is that that is an area that is obvious to you. The skills that you didn't learn in those places may be showing up in other areas, and you'll just be saying, Christine, why are you like this? You won't know that it is a learnable skill that you did not have.
Yeah. Very, 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 very true. It's something that one needs to look at. Now you said this thing is just making me look at that aspect of my life in a different perspective altogether, to see that it's not really that it's a fault of mine or something, but it's a weakness that I need to address and step up on to learn the skills to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not easy anyway when you're now at an older age. It's better when you are young. So that is good. As you're saying this thing now to the younger people, they need to look at their own timeline and see the issues that they need to address. Because some of these issues may be more serious than we're looking at them, that we tend to affect the marriage in the long run.
Certainly. Oh, certainly. Many money problems in marriage between couples is not even about the money.
Yeah.
It's about their money history, their money attitude, and their money skills. So if somebody who is very organized about money marries somebody who is not organized about money,
Mm-hmm.
and the person who is not organized about money does not even know that they are not organized.
Exactly.
They would not, so those are the things.
And then at times too, talking about money, we see mothers that were brought up their own children saw them pinching money. It's like, oh, when the husband gives money for shopping, you take from it and keep it for yourself. Like, okay, oh, you steal from that one and pinch it, or you give a higher price and say, oh, I bought it for 20 naira when it was just 10 naira that you bought it for. So all those things, you learn them, and before you know it, you're carrying all these things to your matrimonial home, and then you start having problems. Trust issues begin to come up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same for the men as well, because a number of men that I have worked with, they say, I don't know why she keeps complaining. I pay the children's school fees, I pay our house rent and everything. The truth is that from where they're coming, when you've done that, you've done well. I mean, and that's all that you're expected to do. If someone saw his mom doing every other thing, unconsciously, they may be coming into marriage assuming that you're going to do everything too, Awareness of ourselves definitely makes a difference.
Yes, it does. And I like this, your Johari window. And the Joe is the same as J-O-E, and the Harry is H-A-R-R-Y, right?
It's actually J-O-H-A-R-I. So it's some psychologists that created the process, and then their names were combined.
Okay.
Or like once you just Google it, Johari window.
Okay. That's a really good one too, because other people, they act as checks for us, and we can now see our blind spot through others when they tell us. So that one is really a good one that I will advocate for people to check it out and know about that. That was very helpful. And then our belief systems, checking your own beliefs and then seeking out new experiences is also good, because it just awaken you, and for you to see like what your beliefs are may not really be something that is like, it's not a taboo or something, the way you're looking at it and all that. So we are so grateful. I took down some notes, and I hope as you listen to it too, that you're taking down some notes also that will help you. And then some of these good things she raised, we formulated them as questions in our workbook that will help you as you talk about them, as you discuss with your partner and answer those questions. It will throw more light for you to understand yourself and see if these things match, because she talked about your personal definition of marriage, which is one of the questions we have in our workbook that asks you like, what is your partner, for your partner to respond to what does he believe is his role in marriage, and then what he also think is your own role in marriage. So all that one, we bring it up for you to see, are you on the same page? Is that what you're thinking as your definition of your own role, or his own role, or her own role? Then that way you can see if that person is really suitable for you. Because those are the things I know that some people just feel like, oh, we can work it out after we are married now. It doesn't matter now that I've met this person, let me just marry. Age is not on my side. What do you have to say about that? Should we just overlook some of these things? We can work them out when we get married.
Well, we can work them out when we get married. Depending on what it is that you want to get worked out. What I always say to people is, if you are not open to learning and willing to change before you get married, it's not going to fall like anointing on you after you get married. And then the second reason for talking about these things is, the person you are marrying, even when you have known yourself and everything, the person you are marrying is a stranger. And Christine, this is how I usually help people to understand it. So if a 30-year-old man is marrying a 28-year-old woman, and they have known one another for 3 years, that 3 years, they've tried to talk about a lot of things. But for the man, there's still 27 years history. And for the woman, there's still 25 years history. So there is everything they talked in that 3 years of relationship. They have just scratched the surface of who they are. So when they get married, they're going to be working, they're going to be looking after children. If you are not self-aware, if you don't have self-knowledge, if you and your partner do not intentionally talk to one another in a way to know one another, what it would mean is that if your partner behaves in a certain way, you will give a wrong interpretation to it. So, for example, I can very easily share personal stories. So when I married my husband, we talked about a lot of things. But you see, when my husband said budget, he just assumed that I knew what budget was. Meanwhile, I was hearing of budget for the first time in my life. And I've told you about not shopping. So he said, okay. I said, yes, let's make budget. He said, what are the things you think needs to be in the budget? I told him what I knew. I didn't know that there were so very many other things that I should put. When money was now not enough, the money that was allocated to me, do you know what the things I was thinking about my husband? He's a wicked man. It's because his money is earning a lot more than me. He's just oppressing me, and all this was bubbling in my mind. If all this is bubbling in my mind, when the man is saying, Shebi, you are supposed to do this thing, you didn't do it, I be getting angry that how can you be expecting me to do it when you know that the money that was given to me is not enough? But essentially, why was the money that was allocated to me not enough? Because I didn't know budgeting, because I didn't even know the things that I should include in the budget for a woman's point of view. Was that my husband's fault?
No.
It wasn't. But because I didn't know myself, I didn't know that I had that lack of capacity for managing money, for understanding all those things, until I opened my eyes and looked at myself and said, everything you wrote in this budget was provided for. All the things that are making you to be short of money, you didn't mention them when budget was being prepared. Whose fault is that? Mine. So it was me who now needed to educate myself that, okay, when a woman is preparing a budget for the home, what are the things that ought to be there? And once I was able to get the understanding of that, and I sat with my husband again, he agreed. It was still the same amount of money we were earning. But look at where my own mind was already going. that he was a bad man, he's cheating me, he's oppressing me. If you don't know yourself, we're not saying you can have the conversation 100% before marriage, but the thing is that having this conversation puts you in a situation where you are practicing how to have these conversations, and you are seeing the good results of having those conversations. So when you now get married and you begin to discover the remaining 97% or 80% that you didn't discuss before marriage, you will already have the skill that enables you to go through those differences and harmonize your expectations. I like what you're doing in the Courtship Academy. I hope that more people will take advantage of it, because if they do, it will make us to become people who are thinking more than we currently do now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mommy Mo. I've really enjoyed this session with you, and hopefully we can have more interactions in the near future. So before we go, I would like you to tell us if people want to connect with you, or you have some materials or resources that can be helpful to them. So how can they connect with you or reach out to you?
Okay. The fastest way to connect with me is on social media. I'm on Instagram at The Right Fit Marriage. I'm also on Facebook as Modupe Ehirim, but I have a community, The Right Fit Marriage Academy. If you send me a message on Instagram or you send me a message on Facebook, I will respond to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mommy.
Thank you, and well done too.
Yes. Thank you.